In addition to the degrees we confer on our graduates today, Columbia College also awards honorary degrees to individuals who are all things Columbia. Their professional accomplishments, their creative vision, the way they engage with the world truly embodies Columbia's ideals. We will award 4 such degrees this weekend during our commencement ceremonies. The bios of the honorees can be found in your program book. So right now, I would like to ask Kubi Nooner, Assistant Professor of Music, to come forward. He will introduce the distinguished individual we are honoring this afternoon.
Thank you very much. A number of years ago, a young man from Oak Park, Illinois, sat in a hall not too far from here, in an assembly much like this one, to receive his Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Theater from, you guessed it, Columbia College, Chicago. On the day of his graduation, I would assume he felt, much like many of you feel today, exhausted, proud, a good bit nervous, yet at the same time very excited. What will the future bring? Well, spoiler alert, the future brought this particular young man, Paul Broucek, the position of President of Music at Warner Brothers Pictures. Oh, the places you'll go. So whether it's the entire Lord of the Rings saga, or the Fantastic Beasts films, or Dunkirk, Paul and his team are the ones making sure the right people create the right music in the right way for each movie, and do so on time and on budget. So how did Paul get from here to there? One thing is obvious. Right from the start, Paul showed a commitment to excellence. First, in the people he worked for, and later also in the people he works with. As Paul quotes his wife in an interview I found, "It's better to fetch coffee for a genius than be vice president to an idiot." Paul lived by that motto right from the start. Shortly after his graduation from Columbia College, Chicago, he got himself a job as assistant engineer at Francis Ford Coppola's film company, where he worked with legendary sound designer Walter Murch on the groundbreaking film Apocalypse Now. That's seeking out excellence. Later, Paul would seek out excellence in those he hired, even when circumstances were less than obvious. When filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón was in post-production on his masterpiece Gravity, he asked Paul to let him hire an unknown composer by the name of Stephen Price. Paul gave his thumbs up despite only having experienced Stephen as a music editor, but as an excellent music editor. Stephen, in turn, repaid Paul's trust by writing an insanely great score and winning an Oscar for it. And Stephen sends his heartfelt congratulations. Besides a commitment to excellence, the other thing that is obvious is Paul's love. Love for the art form and love for the people involved in it. Michael Price, who won the Emmy for the BBC TV series Sherlock, wrote me in an email, "My most vivid memory of Paul is in Abbey Road, Studio 2, the Beatles room, when I was a young music editor on Lord of the Rings. I remember clearly seeing his eyes sparkle as he told stories of all the great artists who recorded there. Paul had then, and has now, an infectious, authentic passion for both the history of great music and for the magical possibility of creating more." President Kim, it is my honor to present Paul Broucek to receive the degree of Doctor of Arts.
Paul Broucek, by the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees and with the great pride of your alma mater, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Arts, honoris causa, with all of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Thank you.
too. Hey, hey. Wow, that's bigger than the one I got before. Things are definitely looking up here at Columbia. So this is not the beginning of my speech yet. When I looked at the order of this program, this is all, we're not broadcasting this or anything. I realize I'm the only thing standing between you guys and getting your diploma and then getting the hell out of here and partying with your family and friends, and well-deserved. So no pressure. Nico, great speech. Love that. Dr. Kim, this guy is inspiring, so you're really lucky to have him. So anyway, now I'll do it. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2018 commencement ceremony for Columbia College Chicago. Welcome and thank you to Dr. Kim, trustees, the Columbia College administration, and teachers. Yep, let's make sure we stop and acknowledge your fantastic teachers. I don't know most of them, but I bet they're great. So, please. Welcome also to all your parents, your family, your friends who are here to clap and cheer and celebrate for you. Yep. But most of all, thank you to the class of 2018 for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm greatly appreciative and a little bit humbled to be here and to receive an honorary doctorate from the school I love. From the very school that sent me out into the world a few decades ago, with all of those same hopes and dreams that I imagine are sitting in your chairs with you today. So what's my story? What might I possibly have to say to you that you could take away as something useful, something you could possibly remember and call up as a useful guide in making an important choice, a key decision somewhere down the road? Let's see how I do, shall we? I'm a Chicago boy, a local kid born and raised in Oak Park. I graduated Oak Park River Forest High School, the alma mater of Ernest Hemingway, whose father was a prominent village doctor. Old Ernest wasn't too kind in his later remembrance of Oak Park as a town of wide lawns and narrow minds. But I was attracted to that description of Oak Park, believe it or not, as a slight warning to myself that I never wanted to be one of those narrow minds. Anyway, I must warn you, I'm going to jump from time to time, slightly out of the sequential timeline, but I'm sure you can hang with me if you've watched a few Christopher Nolan films. So keep up. All right, so where do we... I didn't want to be a narrow mind. Enter Columbia College. Columbia College opened so many doors for me, not so much in a literal way, but in my thinking about myself and how I could go out into the world and make big things happen. I graduated from Columbia College in 1974. Yeah, I know. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were a much smaller college then, probably just 10 to 15% of the student body today. The college facilities were modest, to say the least. The main admin and classroom building was situated in a rather ugly, nondescript brick building on the corner of Lakeshore Drive in Ohio, just across from Navy Pier. The Center for New Music, the Dance Center, and other departments were scattered in various buildings all over the north side. Instead of walking between classes, there was often a bus, a train, or a friend's car involved. Columbia College really changed my life and played a key role in the guy who's standing before you today. Coming out of high school into the college in the late 1960s, early 70s, the big buzzword, the big push in education was summed up in a simple word, but a powerful word: relevance. How to make the learning experience relevant and experiential, and not just lectures and libraries. You see, so many of my generation long to have our education be relevant to the contemporary modern world. I wanted my education to be relevant to how I hope to create my own vibrant future and meaningful place in that contemporary modern world. I spent my first 2 years in a traditional liberal arts program. It was fine, but I wanted so much more. I wanted the city. I wanted the interesting people. I wanted the buzz. No exaggeration, Columbia College immediately became that place of relevance for me from day one. My writing teachers, John Schultz, Betty Shiflett, my music mentor, Bill Russo, my radio TV instructor, Al Parker, these were people who did and made a living doing what they taught. This doesn't seem so exceptional now, But this was very exciting and different and inspiring to me. Of course, this educational concept is common throughout many programs across the country today via a battery of adjunct professors. But to me, in the early 1970s, this place was radical. This place was relevance. This was Columbia College, and I'd found my home. I know myself well enough to realize that personally, I can only get so much out of traditional classrooms and books. I'm the classic B+ student. I know, it's hard to admit, but I am. And just let me sit down and have a conversation with someone who does what I want to learn. Let me watch that person do what they do, what I want to learn, and bam, I'm off to the races. For me, if I can see it, touch it, smell it, wander around it like some VR environment, I can learn it. If you want to learn how to be a great tennis player, watch a lot of Roger Federer or Serena Williams. I mean, that's the way it works. I'm fairly confident for many of you, I hope for all of you, that this is an immersive approach, and that's been your experience here at Columbia College Chicago. Because this is how it's done, people. This is how it's done. You have to get out and grab the world, your world. You need to experience the relevance in all things and get out there to make things happen, both large and small. So I've gotten pretty good at speed dating through a quick history of my career path since graduating Columbia College and moving to California. First San Francisco, then Los Angeles. Yes, I say with some humility and gratitude, I am currently president of music for Warner Brothers Pictures. Mind you, I don't get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I'm president of music at Warner Brothers Pictures. Because that's not who I am, and that's not how it works for me. But since 2009, I've headed up the department overseeing everything music for Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema. It's composers, orchestrators, studios, scoring engineers, pop artists, songwriters, pop producers, classical guest artists, choirs, and everything else that has anything to do with music both on screen and behind the screen. Before moving to Warner Brothers, I held the same role at the original New Line Cinema. I personally executive produced or music supervised the music for, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Hobbit series, the final 2 films in the Harry Potter canon, a personal favorite, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Fantastic Beasts, Argo, Gravity, The Dark Knight Rises. If next time you watch The Dark Knight Rises, my name is on the garbage trucks outside the stock exchange. I'm not kidding you. It was Chris Nolan's joke. I also worked on Dunkirk, Sex and the City, Elf, The Wedding Crashers, and literally dozens and dozens more. It's been a long, rich journey, and there is every sign of it continuing a list of this exciting films to come. So stay tuned. I'm going to. It's my life. But I want to stress that I didn't just arrive at my current position, just as we don't come out of the womb fully formed. There's a growth process, a development process. There's a journey. Frankly, a journey of failures as well as successes. And today, you guys, all you guys, at an early, exciting place in your own journeys. So give yourself a round of applause. I'll tell you a little bit more about my story because I know you guys are passionate. This is Columbia College. So I fell in love with music. I fell hard in love with music as a middle schooler and continued that love as it grew and grew. I didn't know how, but I had to find a way to surround myself with music as much as possible. I played music myself and still do to this day. Sure, I had some fleeting fantasies of doing it all, being a musical renaissance artist, maybe a rock star, a performer, a songwriter, a music producer, a record executive, a recording engineer, all that stuff. But then, and here's some clues, then as life happens for most of us in our 20s, that place where you are right today, that place where life steps in and says, so, how are you going to make a living? How are you going to pay your rent? So strap in, because it only gets more challenging and more interesting. And perhaps some of you thought you might be done learning. Done pushing for all good things now that you're graduating from college. You're just getting started, and it's good. So continuing on from my speed dating narrative, post-graduation I found myself starting to make choices. What was I going to focus on right now? What were the first steps now? All those things that I'm kind of thinking you're doing yourselves. Where did I want to point my own life compass? All with no guarantees in my case that any of it would work out in time, if at all. I did more than a little soul searching and started narrowing my focus as I arrived in San Francisco. What did I really want to do? I realized I wanted to be in the recording studio, to be in that wonderful place where we capture the brilliant live performance of a 96-piece orchestra, a 60-voice choir, or meticulously crafting a hip-hop song one track at a time, thereby creating the illusion of a musical performance actually happening in real time. It's pure magic in the studio. It really is. I decided I wanted to be a record producer, the equivalent really of what a director does in film. But I also decided that to be the kind of record or music producer that I wanted to be, I needed to learn everything about the studio environment. I needed to master the environment in which I planned to work. So I did what we now call a paid internship. Yeah, sorry, it's true. I went to work in a small recording studio in San Francisco, working for a bunch of hippies, running errands, yes, fetching coffee, cleaning the bathrooms and the kitchen. And so I could spend the rest of my time watching, observing, learning about all the technology and the rhythm of a recording studio. I won't deny it. I still played at the idea I could be a performing musician as well as an up-and-coming recording producer. So I formed a disco band in late 1970s in San Francisco. We had fun, we weren't bad, but I had a chance to accept that being in a band wasn't my career future. I had to make a choice. Like many of my generation, I also became fascinated with films in the 1970s, old Hollywood classics, French and Italian cinema, even some experimental films that I'd probably be embarrassed if I watched them today, because I thought they were cool. The 1970s saw an explosion of new cinema gods: Coppola, Scorsese, Lucas, Spielberg, De Palma, Cimino. These directors, their films, became the new rock stars, the new must-see events. It was music and film that consumed much of my focus during and after college. I loved the idea of going into a dark room with a total group of strangers and experiencing a film together in real time. Yeah, what a concept, in real time. I love film, but never expected that something would happen that would change my path in a most fundamental and complete way. By 1979, I needed a job, a real job, and I got one. Through a friend who knew a friend. Yes, networking is king. Coppola's company, American Zoetrope, was looking for young assistant recording engineers to join the sound team doing all the work on a little film called Apocalypse Now. The day started, a 10-month job, and that changed my life, my career path forever. Yet, I really had no way of fully knowing this at the time. It just was something that I had to do along the way. I was one of the assistants to the legendary film sound and editing guru, Walter Murch. And I have to give credit to my wife, Carolyn. Even though the line's been said, she articulated for me later in life, it is better to fetch coffee for a genius than to be a vice president to an idiot. I'll say it again. It's better to fetch coffee for a genius than to be a vice president to an idiot. I learned so much through the experience of seeing, doing, listening. I learned so much and came away with a tremendous sense of confidence that comes with being part of something landmark, a benchmark film of the day. It starts to become part of you. So I immediately decided at post-apocalypse that it was time to make my move to LA and get myself a job in a top recording studio. I made a list of the top 4 or 5 studios that were listed on many of my favorite albums of the era. We used to have things called albums, and they had credits, and you could read them, and I memorized them. I could tell you who played bass on the 3rd track of this album. And that's how I knew about the studios. So I got an interview at my top choice, Record Plant Studios, where artists like Stevie Wonder, the Eagles, Rod Stewart, Fleetwood Mac, Tom Petty were recording at the time. You get the idea. It was a top studio. They offered me a job. I was fancy. I'd just come off of Apocalypse Now. And I enjoyed my time and the new knowledge I acquired about film sound, but it was time to get to my chosen path. I was going to be a record producer, remember? And so I started to work as an assistant recording engineer on that path, but except something interesting happened that subtly changed everything. Hollywood in the early 1980s discovered that the kids, us, the baby boomers, were mad to have our music in films. This was coming off the heels of the massive and cultural musical success of Saturday Night Fever. So Record Plant, being a preeminent studio leader, started working in films in a big way. And I found myself working on films like The Blues Brothers, Spinal Tap, The Jazz Singer, Flashdance, Yentl, Tootsie, An Officer and Gentleman, and on and on. And guess who got drafted to work on all of these? Because guess who had the most film experience at the Record Plant? Me. I think you get the point. We built a scoring stage. We also took over the famed scoring stage Studio M on the Paramount lot and updated it. And I was a key member in all of that. And I just kept piling on experience, the relationships, the return clients. I came to understand how much film music is, how it's done, and to gain an even greater confidence through the many projects I worked on. By the late 80s, I was asked to get involved in a new TV show as something called a music supervisor. Didn't really know what it was, but I was working on the show. I was responsible to oversee all of the music needed for the show, both original score, licensed records, or needle drops as they're called. I thought it was going to be a 4-month gig, and it turned out to be the start of the rest of my career. First overseeing TV shows and feature films as an independent supervisor, then going in-house to New Line Cinema in 1996 and eventually leading to my move to Warner Brothers. There are so many stories I could tell, so many exciting, talented people I've met and worked with, and so many creative political battles fought and often won. But Dr. Kim asked me to keep it relatively short. And I know you're thinking about those diplomas and the parties and all the things. So, this is really what I want to say to you. Thanks for listening to my story. But I want to talk to you guys, and hopefully something I say, because we don't remember these days, we just remember them as events. I'm hoping that I'll give you a couple things you can walk away with. Some things to possibly remember after the excitement of graduation and getting out of school and into the world. What do I do next? How do I do it? Okay, so everything I've said to this point is just prelude. What I want to leave you with today is get in there. Don't be afraid to do stuff. Make stuff. Write a play, write a book, create an app, make a film, write a song. You need to write your story. I would like to redefine the concept that many people have about luck and tell you what I think about luck and what I've experienced and how it really works. Luck is being prepared and able to recognize opportunities when they present themselves. Paying attention, recognizing those opportunities, and then not only recognizing them, but acting on those opportunities. That's what luck is. You create your own luck. It involves work, it involves attention, it involves intuition, but it doesn't really fall into most people's laps. I'm sorry. That's the reality. Next, I want to introduce you to a concept that I call ask, with all in capitals. You've got to be prepared to ask for what you want in life. You've got to be honest with yourself. If you're not prepared to ask for what you want in life, then be happy for whatever shows up at your door. That's okay, but I suspect that you guys sitting here, that none of you are really prepared to settle. Certainly not on graduation day. You may be young, you may not have enough experience yet, but what you do have is the energy and enthusiasm of youth, and there's nothing else like it. Nothing else like it. Now, armed with the Columbia College experience, the world is ready to help, but you need to be prepared to ask. And finally, I want to leave you with 2 gems, 2 mottos to live by both personally and creatively. I'm not sure on the surface they seem like positive mottos, but if you dig deeper, I think you might get the point. And if I only leave you these 2, I'll have done my job. My best friend and I think we made them up some years ago when we were first toughing it out in the indie film world. but I'm really not sure anymore where they actually came from. But I'm going to ask you something because I want to get your blood flowing, because you're going to have to come up on the stage and do this. So if I could have all the graduates please stand up. We're going to change your state a little bit so you can hear what I have to say. Okay, motto number 1. You ready? Okay, wow. All right, I'm going to have you say these back to me so that you embody them. Motto number 1, let your obstacle be your opportunity. Now think about that, take a moment to think about that. Doesn't sound positive, but let your obstacle, the thing that's standing in your way, and you go, oh, I can't do that. Seeing it, the opportunity, your path is blocked, but you now have an opportunity that another door opens. That's expression. So let your obstacle be your opportunity. And then my favorite, and I think this might just have to go on my grave marker, or somewhere where they scatter my ashes. The next one is my favorite. Let your limitations be your liberation. Great. Nicely done. A+. Over to you guys. Have a great life. Knock 'em dead. Go get it done. Congratulations to class of 2018.